So excited to be talking about the theme of Youth Week, hosted by Arataiohi.
Especially in the busy world we live in, that we don't ignore the suffering of so many people, especially when you're in a position of privilege that you're able to be safe.
I guess it's connecting to the theme of Youth Week and what we've just been talking about, is that you don't have to have your life together to make a change. Anyone can make change.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if anything, I feel like that imperfection can be a big inspiration to a lot of people, especially when, like we were talking about earlier.
The thing that's bringing out, again, like exactly as you guys say, probably just vulnerability is a strength in terms of being able to share what you've gone through and being able to share the challenges that you're currently facing, because I think when we do have honest conversation with communities about. Kia ora and welcome to Youth Week. I am so excited to be celebrating Youth Week with my two of my fabulous volunteers, Meg and Harvey, and I'm so excited to be talking about the theme of Youth Week, hosted by Arataiohi, and the theme this year is "We may not have it all together, but together we have it all." How are you guys doing today? It's so nice to celebrate.
Great. How are you?
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah?
How was your day? How were the weeks?
Good, busy, but good busy.
I'm on school holidays right now, so the break's been quite nice.
Would be.
The first thing that we can chat about today is first ideas on the theme. What does it mean to you?
The whole we may not have it all together.
Yes.
I love it. I feel like youth are kind of pressured a bit to get their lives together. This is the stage where, while you can have fun, you're supposed to be getting things sorted, ready to head off into adulthood. And I think the whole, yes, we're actually all a mess and we're all trying to sort our stuff out, but if we do it together and if everyone knows that everyone's working on it, it's so much easier.
I love that.
That is so beautiful. What are your thoughts, Harvey?
I can't beat that. But
Yeah.
But no, definitely agree with what Meg said. Honestly, I couldn't have put it any better. But yeah, I really like it.
One of the things that I find interesting from that, I absolutely agree. My gosh, you absolutely nailed it. Was I think it's actually pretty similar for adults. I remember one piece of advice that one of my favorite high school teachers, which I'd actually forgotten until now, gave me was when you go to university, she said, the biggest resource you have is each other, is the other people that you're with. But actually, that's not just good advice for university. That's actually just really good advice for everything in life. And I was like, for life. I was like, why wasn't I thinking that when I was at like primary school and stuff?
And honestly, no one has it together. That's what I think. Yeah. You know, we're all just kind of going along pretending like we do.
Yeah. Everyone's faking it till they make it. And if everyone knows that everyone else is faking it till they make it, it makes it a lot easier.
It does.
I think also one of the realizations or different perceptions of when you're a kid is like, oh, when I'm grown up, I will have it all together, and that's kind of the expectation. And then when as you grow up more and more, you're like, oh wait, I still don't have it together.
Yeah.
Actually, no one actually ever fully does.
And I feel like it can be really easy to be kind of down on yourself and be like, why don't I have it together? But you know, what can you do? That's how it is sometimes, and it's just part of life.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges? I'm thinking about some of those tricky things that we've all faced and not having it together. Are there any challenges that you guys have faced growing up or around during your youth, and how you've overcome them?
Do you have anything?
Oh, hit me with it first. Okay. Challenges. I guess if we were going to talk about challenges, I've had like some challenges with my physical health from a young age, and that's something that's always kind of I don't know, it started off when I was like 14. I was diagnosed with functional neurological disorder. So that's something that I've kind of like struggled with for a very long time, but it's also something that is part of who I am, and over time, just learn to live with it, yeah. But yeah, you know, but it's something that it's actually quite a common thing, and you know, you never know what's gonna happen, so I've just learned to live with it as things come, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really brave. What do you think helped you kind of have that, I'd say probably quite a positive attitude about, you just kind of learned to live with it. How do you think you came to that?
Oh, it definitely wasn't like that at the beginning.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I was like, I hate this. I hate my life. Why is this happening? But, you know, I guess as things go on, it's kind of like the only thing you can do. It was that, or just like kind of drown in my sorrows, which honestly at the time felt like a great option. I was like, this sounds nice. But, you know, as things go on, you kind of try and do what you can do, and that's enough sometimes, and you build on that. Yeah.
I think it's probably like that for a lot of challenges that I guess everyone faces, but maybe especially youth, because you have a lot less control of your life as a young person, especially like if you're living at home and dependent on your parents and stuff. There's less you can do, so you kind of do have to just find the best way to face it as much as you can. Versus maybe as an adult, you might be more like, oh, try and either be more in control of your situation or try and change it more. Versus, it sounds like you had quite a positive attitude eventually in terms of like, well, I'll try and make the best of it, and overcoming a lot, and especially being here and being able to talk about it and everything like that, and inspiring others. What about you, Meg? Any thoughts on challenges?
Challenges growing up. I think there's that kind of, we talked about this weeks ago, coming to that realization that everyone around you is also struggling and that kind of stuff. Like, we've had a few. Being in the presence and being really close to other people who have been going through mental health crises and just and having to deal with it, learning how to support people and doing that while you're still learning how to deal with your own mental health and growing up is really tough. And I see tons of my friends going through it as well. And I think that's something a lot of youth really struggle with. All our parents aren't perfect and they're not all put together. And if you're confronted with that really early on, it can be really scary.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. I couldn't really think of anything else.
That's pretty, those are the issues of our time, and especially,
definitely. But what do you think helps?
I think definitely biggest support network. The bigger your support network, the easier everything is. And it can be really, you really want to just bottle everything up and be so like, I'm so good at handling everything, but it does not work like that.
Everything just finds a way of kind of
exploding. You internalize everything, especially if it's people from your, if it's your immediate support network that is struggling, it's going to be so much harder to recover from that. So I think branching out, talking to other people, building really solid relationships with a wide range of people is kind of what you have to do to get through it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and actually the more we talk about it, I think the theme of Youth Week makes more sense to me, having these conversations. And I think a lot of my experiences growing up and a lot of my life still now is kind of like getting it through my head that everyone isn't perfect and that you don't have to be perfect and that that's not the aim of life. And actually, if you are vulnerable with what you're experiencing, or maybe if you're not coping very well, or your support network isn't doing very well, actually that's definitely not a shameful bad thing. And B, that can actually, this is going to be how you get through it, and this can actually help other people. But just kind of getting that into your head that this kind of, this tendency to keep to yourself, to try and pretend you're okay, or try and get through it by yourself, isn't what's going to help you or the world necessarily, but actually if you do rely on other people and share what you're going through, then it just makes life a lot better.
Yeah. No, completely, Rata. You know, exactly. I think we're stronger as a community, and that's where oftentimes, like you were saying, Meg, we find our strongest supports.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm getting the feels now. deep start, yeah, a little bit. But we've all gone through a lot and learning a lot, and I think that's the beautiful thing about like the experiences we've had and sharing this with each other now, and hearing how we can make the world a better place through sharing the lived realities of what we've experienced and the way that both of you guys are really, really doing.
Do you have an answer to the question?
Yes.
Do you think...
I feel like I vaguely touched on that. I don't know. I think it probably really resonates with me a lot. What you said about especially the mental health struggles, and I think I was talking with a friend yesterday about trying to support last year a friend who didn't have good was really struggling, and we'd known they'd been struggling for a long time, and it'd kind of been a thing when I was at high school, that sort of did these people struggling, but obviously as high schoolers you don't know how to treat other people's mental health, because it's not something that, it's not like we're coached in school on how to look after your mental health or other people's emotional regulation. So I think just being really aware that actually talking about these things and opening up is the best way to get through challenging times, and that's also a continual process. It doesn't just stop when you get older or whatever. Like that. Yeah. It's like, what does that mean? But yeah. To a slightly lighter place potentially. What would be a memorable experience you guys could share growing up in New Zealand as a young person?
One memorable experience.
Or many. I mean, we've got time, Whatever comes to mind.
I can think of something for me that I don't know. I think I'm too much of an English nerd because it's really poetic. But in New Zealand, obviously, I think we celebrate really well. Is that we have a really good number of public holidays, and this is just I rant about this way too often. We have really good amount of public holidays, and like they're spaced out really well. And so I remember as a kid, one of my favorite things was to go see the Guy Fawkes show, and I'd go like we'd all walk up a hill with our like puffer jackets, and we'd go watch the fireworks show. Except it would always be backwards because we wouldn't go to the harbour. It's too busy, so we'd be behind it. So every single shape is back to front, but it was fine. And then it was such a cool change when it got changed to being the fireworks for Matariki, and it's even better spaced, and so you can go out in the winter and you can go see them. And so I think I've seen them every year.
Yeah, cool. That's really beautiful. And on that note, I'm really glad that Matariki's finally public holiday. It's very happy with that addition.
That's very good. And I don't know why we were still celebrating Guy Fawkes in New Zealand, but
yeah, I mean, fair enough. But that does sound like a very beautiful memory. Did you like climb up a hill?
We used to have like a water tower at the top of our street, so we'd like go up and sit like by the water tower.
I'm not gonna lie. Can someone answer me this question? What is a water tower?
Have you seen them? Like they're like giant concrete like buildings. And they're like I'm trying to think where the nearest one, there aren't many in central Wellington. They're mainly out in the suburbs. And they just store water.
Wait, are they concrete things?
Yeah.
And you just like climb on top of one? I like that.
Yes. A lot of teenagers do use them for nefarious purposes, but they're quite cool. We have a ton at like Newlands, Jabil, where I live. So.
I think there was one where I lived in Johnsonville a couple of years ago, and I remember like coming across this thing, and I was like, "What on earth is this?" And I spent like 6 months conspiracy theorizing. What is this strange object?
It's right. They're in the middle of like two houses. In the suburban, except they're taller than the houses. They're huge.
That sounds freaky. I've like actually never seen one.
They're a little bit. So. Wow, learning experience for everyone. They now that I think about it, they are a little scary. Like they're usually quite removed as well, and so you just happen upon a giant concrete structure in the middle of your suburb.
Well, that's good we have with my guys. Water.
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of the Kiwi youth bucket list, or at least for the Wellington region, to be like, okay, go, Harvey, you've got your homework assignment for the next week. Time to go climb that water tower. Yeah. And maybe we'll find them like crowded at Matariki as everyone's like, oh, we know the good spots for the fireworks watching. So yeah.
Yes. Do you have your
memorable moment? That's like, damn, that's a big question.
It's a big question, eh? It's a hard question.
I was trying to think, and then, like, even while you're talking, I'm like, damn, I can't beat that one. I don't know. I guess some memorable moments. So, like, I think sometimes the memorable things about growing up in New Zealand are like kind of like the everyday things that kind of just are part of everyday life that if you don't think about it otherwise, can be pretty easy to ignore, whether that's just like going for a walk or going to the beach. I think that's quite nice, and especially when you're with people you love. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you go bushwalking as a kid?
No.
Ooh, that's one of
my family are not big on like I've never gone camping either.
Oh, whoa, really?
And I'm not gonna lie, I don't get the appeal.
I
don't want to sleep outside. I have a house.
I was a scout for many, many years, so I was about camping every other weekend, and I hate it now. It's completely turned me off. Yeah.
Really? I thought it would be the opposite. But...
I mean, once I was the oldest kid, and I'm coaching around 20 other small children to make a tent, and so you're doing it in the dark, and it's taking an hour longer than it should, you get pretty sick of it.
Have you ever gone camping?
I have. I was thinking... Probably two main memories came to mind, but the first one you remind me of bushwalking actually before you said it. I had a lot of bushwalking when I was growing up, and as a young person I really didn't like it. Like the only the way that my mum got me to keep doing it is she was like, okay, well every time we get to a seat you can have a piece of chocolate. One piece of chocolate whenever you just keep walking and get the next seat. And so I try and pick the walks where there are a lot of seats. And then some walks there wouldn't be many and I'd be really angry. It's like but yeah, I've kind of like had highs and lows from I guess the classic kind of Kiwi experiences of like camping and bushwalking and stuff like that in terms of how I feel about them. So I think as a young person, my mum forced me to do a lot of that stuff. And then after a couple of years of uni, I was like, hang on a second, like I kind of miss like plants and stuff, and I'm still kind of coming to this realization that actually if I want to be around plants and stuff, I actually need to seek it out myself because no one's going to force me to do that anymore, and that's quite a strange experience.
It's quite strange when you think about it. But I feel like as well when you're younger, it's pretty easy to just kind of like not appreciate it as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was the same when I was little, but now I'm like, I feel like an old person. I'm like, I just want to go for a walk in nature.
Yeah.
Look at the stars.
I think also when you're young, you like younger, you maybe don't see the appeal as much of the kind of the still moments and the slowing down spaces. You're like, oh, you might be, or at least I was, kind of in a rush to like grow up and do stuff and kind of have lots of activity versus now it's like, oh, the peace and quiet.
Yeah, no, I actually would have to agree. And even now, I feel like those still moments are actually the nicest. And they're so hard to capture, which is, especially when everything is so busy and hectic and you have so much going on. It's easier to appreciate.
I think the other slightly different tract, but the other key memorable thing I was thinking about from childhood, I guess not my childhood, but just thinking, I guess like good times from my youth and stuff like that was I was really lucky. Our school principal when I was at high school, or intermediate / high school, gave a couple of my friends and I the opportunity to try and make a school garden, and we kind of really ran with it and turned our school into an environment school and did all those sorts of things. And again, it was kind of bringing the environment to our place and creating spaces for those stillness, for that stillness and that connection with nature. But it was also really cool about that was being in a position where a person in authority gave us as young people positions of authority and just really the ability to have creative freedom and to have our own ideas be explored and kind of the leadership to be able to lead something. And that really gave us a huge step of confidence and motivation. I think quite significantly kind of changed my life and how I thought about my experience as a young person, sort of my role in the world and at our school and all those kinds of things. That was a really cool moment in terms of like maybe transformation of my life in terms of seeing the power that young people have and seeing how we can make this world a better place and sort of like visibly, it sounds like quite a small thing, we made a garden in our school, but it sort of became a much bigger thing as sort of we tried to improve the environment in our school, and then a couple of years later School Strike for Climate comes around and we're kind of ready because we've had these moments of smaller leadership kind of leading up to that. So that was another cool moment, but again, I think kind of areas of connection with the environment in my life have been quite significant, so that's another good moment for me.
Cool. No, definitely. That's definitely memorable. And I feel like sometimes small things like that can make a big impact, honestly. And I feel like it's really amazing that you got given that opportunity. And I bet that garden is still there now, so
I hope so.
And I feel like adults and principals, especially and teachers, giving us those opportunities in high school when we're younger for leadership and to make change is so important. Like, we see all this stuff and you see like head girl, head boy, head girl, head students, you see your student councils and stuff. And I think like the ability to have student leaders is so underregarded because it is just so important to have those leadership opportunities to show that youth can lead, even when it might not be in the most dramatic way or in a huge change way, it still makes change.
It does, and I feel like it's like you're saying, it's definitely something that is quite important as well and empowering, especially as we're going on to a new world, having those abilities to lead and make a change and those skills that are necessary to do that. That's definitely important.
I think that's especially true what you say, Harvey, about like the type of world you want to create. And I guess also I think a lot about, I can never remember quite the quote correctly, but the Einstein quote about how you can't fix the problem from the same perspective that the problem was kind of created in. And it's sort of like if you wanna solve a lot of the issues, like I think all of us in our lives, especially you guys here, are doing a lot to try and improve the world from the perspectives and the wisdom that you guys have that you've gained. And that's a lot that if you don't know the problem inside out, or if you've got sort of an older perspective that might have kind of be more traditional, then you won't necessarily have the innovation for creating better solutions. And I think that's really important. Yeah.
Definitely. And I feel like oftentimes youth can be disregarded as like a voice when it comes to leadership or change, especially when it comes to important issues that will ultimately, people that will be affecting is youth themselves, since we are the ones that will have to live with the consequences of, whatever people decide to do, the world that's given to us. So I think it's really important that we get given those opportunities and we kind of act by example and kind of share that forward, I think. And even small moments like that, like building a garden or just doing whatever you can, I think that's really important, honestly.
Being a scout leader and showing them how to make
Oh,
tents,
man.
yeah. How do we see the role of young people in shaping the world around us? What do we think that looks like? What do we see our role, or even more youthy people's role as?
I think it's critical. And I think in terms of the vision for what we want our future to look like has to come from the youth. I think we see way too much of people who aren't, it sounds very harsh, aren't exactly going to be alive to see the next version of our world leading and being the only ones whose perspectives are heard. And not even leading, but just being the ones who are giving that vision. They can say they know what we want, but they can't be in our minds for what we want to see for the next world, especially in terms of how we want our cities to be livable, if we want them to be walkable, if we want them to be like eco-friendly, that kind of stuff. The vision needs to be coming straight from the young people.
Exactly. You can't have someone else speaking on behalf of an entire population. I completely agree. And I guess the role for young people, it's a big one. I don't know. I feel like in the end of the day, I feel like young people have a lot of different perspectives to give, and no single young person will be the same. And I feel like those perspectives and those things that we carry with us are ultimately very vital in creating a world where we create opportunities and ultimately better it for each other. Because in the end of the day, it's all about what we share and what we leave behind. And I think that's very important.
Totally agree with that. I think it's also really beautiful in terms of, if I think about what it means to actually be a leader. It's like, if I think of what leadership means, well, it's not just I know what's right and I'm going to go do this, but actually, if you're a leader, you take into account the perspectives of everyone, and you actually listen to people and try and gather information from everyone, but especially communities who might not necessarily be heard. It's like, that's, if you think of, I don't know, a good leader in a family, perhaps, then you might see them talking to every member of the family, even the youngest one, whose voice might not be as loud as everyone else's, but that's what good leadership is. And I think you also nailed that really well, Harvey, in terms of talking about us all working together. And I think that's, again, also goes back to the theme of this year's Youth Week. It's like, well, when we do all work together and do listen to each other's voices, we do have the resources and the vision to actually build a world that works for everyone and that is empowering for all the people who are going to be around in it, and for everyone who isn't, and sort of trying to find solutions and stuff like that. I think we've got
definitely. Exactly as you're saying. And as well, I think it's, I don't know what you're saying kind of just made me think of this. I think as well, it's not just one single person. I feel like it's the work of multiple hundreds, millions even, of people that will actually make a change. And oftentimes when we think of change, especially for something so drastic as the world, which is, I don't know, I can't even envision that. It's like, I don't know, I feel like that's ultimately what we should focus on helping each other and doing the best we can as an individual, but more importantly, as part of a community.
That's, I think, without going kind of weaving that back into the leadership thing, is that the leaders, when they're looking at the legacy they want to leave behind, they should want to be known as leaders who listen to everyone and helped utilize the network of communities we have, helped, like, that spoke to all the minorities, that got everyone working together. That should be the legacy they want to leave, rather than I was a big person and I made big decisions. That shouldn't be what our leaders are looking to do.
Yeah, and there are so many amazing youth leaders, like you're saying, leaders like that who listen, and especially in the youth community, it's honestly astounding how many young people are out there actually doing their best to make a change. Honestly, so inspirational. And we see that, and oftentimes people wonder, like, damn, it's incredible, especially adults, like, that's incredible. But I feel like every young person has that in them, and oftentimes it can be very easy to dismiss or even think, no one's capable of that, or I'm not capable of that. But we see it in our everyday lives, small things, they add up, and I think that's really beautiful. And like you were saying, exactly, who do you want to be and how do you want to make that change? That's definitely important.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, you guys. Oh my gosh. I think also it's one of my, like, the things that brings me the most joy, but also inspiration in my role at voiceofaroha, is getting to talk to, be inspired by like so many young people, and just it does fill me with a bit of shock. And I think you're also really right, Harvey, in saying that a lot of older people, and I've definitely been that with myself, but I also remember people saying that to me, being like, oh, I can't believe you've done X, Y, Z, and it's a little bit of, wow, I can't believe that someone can achieve those things, but actually knowing what everyone, including yourself, is capable of is like, oh no, actually you can make extraordinary difference. But it's just, I feel really, really, really lucky in my role to be able to get to have conversations with you guys and with other people who are just doing the most incredible things. It's really, really, really inspiring. I guess it's the thing about when you get those youth voices, but also we listen to everyone's voices, it's like, wow, it does just kind of inspire you and sort of help us all to realize the power that we have collectively as well as individually. And it's just an extraordinary thing. It gives us the willpower to make a better world and to know that we can, because we're not doing it alone.
Definitely, and that's something I really love about voiceofaroha, actually. It's all about community and bringing people together. What is it that Codrin always says? It's the Aroha community. I don't know. I really do love that, and I think that's honestly such an amazing, honestly, I can't even put it in words, but I just think it's very beautiful how we all come collectively to really just speak and do our best to change the world in our small ways, and I really like that.
Well, it's also, I think, it's definitely the kaupapa that voiceofaroha tries to have, but it's also the kaupapa that we've been talking about that changes the world in terms of like what we're all trying to do, I think, in our lives and with each other and our communities and our networks. And it's just, it's a cool place to be and to be able to get to do that with you guys, and you guys are doing that in your communities. It's like we're all making change, and it's really, really, really exciting. So, yeah. We're running out of time. Like, I'm going to keep chatting. What topics or issues do we think are important for young people to discuss and advocate for in today's society, especially if we are trying to make a change? What do you guys think are the most important things that we should be chatting about?
Most important things? Oh, there's so many important things out there. That's a difficult one.
Most important, I obviously think you should advocate for everything. I think you should advocate for everything you believe in. But most important, if we're talking about the youth, has to be climate change. If we're talking about the vision we see for our world in the future, and when we're adults and when we are given more capacity to lead, we have to think about climate change and how our world is changing and is being destroyed by something that we could technically control.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree, especially since at the end of the day, we're the ones that will be having future generations that come after that will be having to live with this crisis. And it's already, pretty bad. So I would have to agree completely. And as well, I was thinking at the moment, at the time that we're currently in, I feel like the issue with Palestine is definitely something that should be at the forefront of everyone's minds, because it is quite a tragic set of events that have happened there and the people that are currently suffering. And I feel like it's very important, especially in the busy world we live in, that we don't ignore the suffering of so many people, especially when you're in a position of privilege that you're able to be safe. And I feel like it's very important that we advocate for those that unfortunately aren't.
I think I see a lot of similarities between both issues in terms of connectivity to the world, and actually, even if we're not tomorrow necessarily, but from some perspectives we are, being affected by climate change as viscerally as people in Papua New Guinea or Kiribati or anything like that. We are in an interconnected world, and we are affected by, and it's important, other people's suffering as well as our own. And I just think realizing that and kind of having that consciously in our minds when we're thinking about what clothes we buy or which leaders we vote for or whatever, or what conversations we have. I think it's bringing that perspective, I guess, of what other people are experiencing to the table is really, really important for climate change, for Israel and Palestine, for kind of every issue. I think that's kind of key in the forefront.
And I think definitely because it's all about, we're talking about advocacy, right, which is like making noise, speaking up, putting a voice where there isn't a voice, which obviously we care a lot about voiceofaroha. And it's like, we can't let things die silently. Like with Palestine, they've been trying to make that their voices aren't heard, that they don't have any internet to spread their message, to spread what is the horrific things that are happening to them. Same with Sudan, which has been happening for years and years now, where people are dying senselessly. and it's making sure that we're always giving voices to the voiceless, I think is critical.
I completely agree, and I feel like it can be quite hard, especially I feel like when the world makes you feel so isolated and like even though you see something happening in front of you, you feel like the easier option is to distract yourself or to just because in the end of the day we feel powerless oftentimes, especially when we're faced with something so drastic as the genocide of a population or global warming. But ultimately, like we were speaking about earlier, I feel like it's the culmination of everyone's work that kind of breeds that opportunity for change. And small things do add up. And I feel like it's very important that we, I don't know, notice that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Really
That's a
well
really
said.
nice, hopeful ending to that conversation, especially when, as you said, there are such big challenges. So I love the hope. I love the inspiration. I would love to keep talking this incredible korero. I feel like we're making a change in perspectives in the world, and so I'd love to keep having it more. But I guess I just ask you guys. If you have one message for other young people watching, and to celebrate the end of our Youth Week chat.
I guess it's connecting to the theme of Youth Week and what we've just been talking about, is that you don't have to have your life together to make a change. Anyone can make change. Anyone can have a positive effect on the world. Hopefully we're all striving to have positive effects on the world, but you don't have to be perfect to make that impact.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if anything, I feel like that imperfection can be a big inspiration to a lot of people, especially when, like we were talking about earlier, no one's perfect. And me personally, I feel like our discussions today, something that I've really gotten out of it is the importance of community, and especially when we realize the vulnerability that everyone has and some communities have more than others, and how we should be striving to do our best to share that kindness and protect each other, because, I don't know, that's what it is to be human. I don't know.
It's so beautiful.
So great.
I don't have anything to top for either of those. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like you guys did it all. Probably the only thing I would say is the thing that's bringing out again, like exactly as you guys say, probably just vulnerability is a strength in terms of being able to share what you've gone through and being able to share the challenges that you're currently facing. Because I think when we do have honest conversation with communities about those things, then we can really bring all of our honest lived experiences and thoughts and feelings to the table and connect with other people who are feeling similar ways. And that's honesty is really powerful, and I think especially when we're trying to make change. So yeah, be your vulnerable, beautiful self, because you're lovable and worthy. So yeah,
I completely agree.
I think you matched us. I think we all had awesome.
Yeah.
I think we all had awesome ones.
it's the power of us all coming together and sharing our opinions. Yeah. Gosh, this was such a cool conversation. I think that's probably us. We look forward to more exciting Youth Week activities. But for today's podcast, thank you everyone for listening. It has been so cool. I hope you really appreciated the incredible wisdom of Harvey, Meg, and myself. It was so fun hearing their perspectives. And I hope you guys have a fantastic afternoon or whenever time you're watching. Thank you guys again.
Bye.
Bye.